A special welcome to Shiv Kumar ji and Vikram ji. Thank you so much for being here, both of you, with us, with Dipti and me. Special thank you to the TIE Bangalore. This is the fourth time that we've got this opportunity to run this program, and I'm truly delighted, humbled by the fact that we're able to run this program every week. This is the fourth week that we're running this particular series, and it's heartening that all of you are here. So Shreya, if you can enable the chat box for a little while. I have a question to all of you. I'd like to begin by asking all of you a simple question. And if you can please type it in the chat box, the answers, that would be great, because that would help Vikram, Shiva, and Shiv Kumar ji and Dipti for us to understand, where you are. So my question to you all is very simple. We've got this beautiful mind, isn't it? And this mind keeps wandering here, there, and everywhere. Now, you're sitting in a meeting and the mind is wandering. You're working on a very, very important pitch deck. You're working on, meeting an investor, or you're meeting some important client, and your mind is just, going all over the countryside. How do you control the mind? A, is it possible? B, and if yes, how? So just give us some answers on the chat box if you can type it out. Some of you may be on your mobiles, but yeah, okay, we've got Sadanand Raj Purohit. It's quite difficult, absolutely. Thank you so much, Sadanand, for that answer. A, is it possible? B, if it is, then how? Let's hear your answers, because I think that will give all four of us a chance to understand you better. And so just type it out in the chat box if you don't mind. Right, we've got. Okay, so yes, Sadanand, you'll be the first off the ground. Vijay Saraf ji says, meditate for some time for concentration. Yeah, fantastic. Vijay ji, that's a great answer, Vijay bhai. Pradeep says, trying to do one thing at a time. Absolutely. No multitasking. That's a great answer, Pradeep. Anybody else? Any of you who are typing your answers? Akanksha Rai. Hi, Akanksha. Akanksha says, being mindful of thoughts, if and when it wanders, we can quickly bring it back to the present. What a lovely answer, Akanksha. Reena Rai says, breathing practice. Yeah, sure. That's another great thing that can be done. No doubt about that. Any more answers? So as I told you, Vikram and Shiv Kumar, that this is a very, very interesting, evolved audience that we are talking to today. These are yeah. Any more? Yeah, keep them coming. Sadanand Rajpuro, it goes on to add, the content should be interactive and or the person should go into that activity with one thing, with only that thing in focus. Okay, that's interesting. Abhinav says, telling oneself that it's only for a bit, one can think about this after the meeting. All right, very nice, interesting. Okay. Okay. Telling oneself that it's only a bit, one can look at for the entire meeting. All right. Any more answers? Otherwise, yeah. Shreya says, have a to-do list with priority and focus. Yeah, sure, Shreya. That's a good one. The last 1 minute, folks, and then we'll close this so that maybe note down what's catching up attention or diverting us and then getting back to the present. Absolutely. So just 30 seconds and then we can close that. Abhay says, controlling your mind is easier said than done. Absolutely, Abhay. That's Akshay, I'm sorry. Akshay. I hope that by the end of this session today, Akshay, Shiv Kumar ji, Vikram ji, Dipti ji, and I would have shared some thoughts on how we can actually get this going. Fantastic, Shreya. If you can close the chat box for us so that it doesn't disturb us, Shreya. All right. So let's get back to what we were talking about. But before we go ahead, I'd really like you all to do me a small favor. Okay. All of you are entrepreneurs. All of you are running your enterprise. This focus of this particular session is on the startup, on scaling up, on that entire phase of the entrepreneur's journey. If you can quickly write down in maybe 5 or 6 words as to why did you start this enterprise, what is the purpose of your enterprise, and you will understand this a little later when I'll come back to you. If you can help us and write down what is the purpose of your enterprise, why did you start this particular enterprise? If you can write that down, on a piece of paper somewhere, in your mobile somewhere, something that would be useful, right? Any place that you can write down. Why did you start this enterprise? In 6 words, okay? Like for instance, just to give you an idea, the reason why I started Born to Win was that 22 years ago, I told myself I want to help people help themselves in a joyous way. Okay, so help people help themselves joyously. That was my purpose of starting Born to Win. Likewise, if you can just write that down and just keep it aside. Fine. So let's understand today's topic of how do we create artha? How do we create wealth by practicing Abhyasa and Vairagya? So the first thing we need to understand is the fact that the mind will wander. That is its nature. And you can't stop it from wandering. Even if you keep telling your mind, don't wander, don't wander, don't wander, it won't listen to you. So there is no point in resisting it. Okay, it will wander. That is something that is bound to happen, and that's natural. That's normal. So let's not even worry about the mind wandering and is it good, is it bad? There's nothing good. There's nothing bad about it. I mean, it will wander. It just keeps going here and there. I could be talking to you about color yellow, and suddenly you can all start thinking of tulips, and before you know it, you are possibly in Amsterdam, in that lovely movie with Amitabh ji and Rekha ji, wandering around in that tulip garden and singing that song in Silsila or whatever it is. And here I'm asking you, saying, do you think the color yellow is making sense or not making sense? And you are with Amitabh and Rekha, and that's perfectly normal. So it's okay. Nothing wrong with it. What we need to understand is the following. The mind complex, as I call it, has about 5 different parts. What are the 5 different parts? The first is called the manas. What does the manas do? The manas is that part of the mind complex that interacts with the external world. What you see, what you hear, what you smell, what you taste, what you feel, all of that is giving some kind of an input to the manas, and that is part of the entire mind complex. The second part of the mind complex is what we call chetana, which is your experiences. Okay. They could be your past experiences. They could be certain experiences that you go through in life. And what happens is that whenever any input comes in, it can go and embed itself. It's like a giant computer doing a store. And it can go and embed itself in one of these experiences that you have. Now, that experience can be a great experience. It can be a not so great experience. It doesn't matter. The third is the aham, the ego. Okay. And this is also part of that mind complex. The fourth is the buddhi, the intellect, which is there. And the fifth part is your antakaran, which is your reason to be, the purpose that, whatever you want to do in your life. Now, this is the mind complex. The challenge is when the mind becomes restless, and as Arjuna in chapter 6 tells Krishna that, it is chanchalam himmana Krishna, and he says, look, it is pramati, it is absolutely turbulent. It is not going to stay in one place. It is turbulent. It's like, this giant, cyclone that is hitting in the sea, and you get these waves that are going up and down and up and down and up and down, and it's turbulent. It's pramati. And he says, more than that, it is balavat. It is very strong. So, in its turbulence, the mind will possibly go and sit in a particular place amongst one of these four aspects, which is your manas, which is your chetana, which is your aham, which is your antakaran, your buddhi. And once it gets stuck there, it also becomes drida, which means it becomes unyielding, it becomes stubborn. So it gets stubbornly stuck in a particular groove. And that is the challenge with the mind. Now, what is the problem there? Whenever the mind accesses any of these three aspects, which is the manas, the aham, and the chetana, and becomes strongly fixated onto that aspect, then guess what happens? As entrepreneurs, we have a duty. And what is the duty? We've got to work on this purpose of ours. We've got to keep coming back to that purpose of ours. And every day we need to do something that I call significant action. Because there are four types of action that we go through in a day. The first is inaction, where we do nothing. The second, when somebody pushes, we get into reaction. The third, from reaction, we move into what I call inefficient action. And what happens with the mind is that when it gets strongly fixated on a particular groove, that can either lead to inaction, reaction, or inefficient action. We've got to train the mind to get into the fourth kind of action, which is called significant action. Only when you get into significant action will you be able to move this enterprise forward. Will your team be able to work on the goals that it is supposed to work on? The team will start getting into those kinds of targets that it needs to get into. It's only when that happens that you start getting into a situation where the enterprise will start creating value and will start creating wealth, which is the purpose of the enterprise. As we've been exploring in the last three sessions, the purpose of the enterprise is to figure out a way to create artha, which is wealth, on the basis of dharma. And we examined that in great detail in the last three sessions. So, how do you actually get into this situation of creating this artha on the basis of what you need to be doing, which is your antakaran? So let me, one of the things that we've started doing in this particular series of the Antar Prerana is to do a small 5-minute reflective session. And I'd like to invite you all to join me on the reflective session. So just sit comfortably wherever you are. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath in, slow breath in, and breathe out through your mouth. Take another deep breath in, slowly, and breathe out through your mouth, slowly, letting the breath go. And as your breath goes out, just kind of, settle in wherever you're sitting down. And I want you to quietly sit and start observing your thoughts. Where are these thoughts going? As you sit down, are these thoughts slowly getting into which aspect of the mind complex is it accessing? The manas, something that you've seen, something that you've heard, something that you've experienced in the past, something about your ego. Just observe where those thoughts are going. With a gentle smile on your face, if you can Recall the Antakaran, the purpose with which you started this business. Those 5, 6 words that I asked you to write down. And if you can direct your thoughts to that, to your reason to be. Why did I start this business? You can slowly make sure that those thoughts are now focusing on that. As you focus on your reason to be, that the happiness that it is creating for you. The mind is wandering, doesn't matter, bring it back to the Antakaran. Keep smiling. And the happiness that it creates for you when you work on your purpose, feel that energy. Repeat this purpose almost like a mantra. Feel that energy in your system. And once you've done that, slowly open your eyes and come back into the room. It's this energy, it's the way of directing your thoughts to your purpose. The fact is that the mind will wander, but then you can actually, like I think Akanksha put it so beautifully, you can start directing it to the way you want it to go. What does Krishna teach us? The Bhagavad Gita has a beautiful shloka. And what I'd like to do is that I'd like to share that particular shloka with all of you and request Dipti to tell us about the shloka.
Yeah. Can you just put it on the slide, no?
Yes. Can you see it?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Asanshayam Mahabaho Mano Durnigraham Chalam Abhyasena Tu Kaunteya Vairagyena Cha Gruhyate. Lord Krishna said, O mighty armed son of Kunti, what you say is correct. The mind is indeed very difficult to restrain, but by practice and detachment, it can be controlled. So, through this shloka, Krishna is giving us two ways in which mind can be controlled. One is Abhyasa, that is practice, and the other is Vairagya, which is detachment. Now, even for detachment, we need to practice. It doesn't happen. We cannot get detached overnight. Detachment from the fruits of action, right? So we cannot get detached overnight because of our moh that we have with our actions and the results of the action. So even that needs a practice. So one can say that practice is of primary necessity to control the mind. And when we talk of entrepreneur, for an enterprise, focus on the purpose is of utmost priority. And especially for women entrepreneurs. And I'm a woman, I have seen this, I have experienced it also. That when a woman becomes an entrepreneur, she's constantly struggling because one, she's engaged continuously in a multitasking, and then she's trying to balance between home and work. And in this process, it becomes, focusing on the purpose why she started the business becomes a big challenge. Now, I have seen through my mentoring process for various women that I have mentored, I have seen that so many of them even go to the extent that either they change the course of action or they want to take a back seat, even drop the ideas of whatever dream they have. And therefore, one of the suggestions that I have always given to my mentees is that you need to have 5 action points which you need to inculcate in yourself. And what are those action points? The first action point that I suggest is always, every day, on a daily basis, every day, when you start the day, always remind yourself why I am doing what I am doing, because that keeps bringing the purpose in your mind again and again. The second thing that you need to ask yourself is, what is my today's action going to be? And see if whether that action is helping me move towards achieving my purpose, or is it taking away from it. The third action point is to take small steps which are precise towards your goal, towards your purpose. And the fourth would be prioritizing your task. And the fifth is have timelines, fixed timelines for everything that you do. These 5 action points, if we can inculcate as a habit in our daily routine, then I have seen them create wonders. I remember one of the mentees that I had about 5 years back. I was mentoring her. She has just started her business. She was trying to make cosmetics through coffee, and she was entering the business, and she was also going through a very serious personal problems, and then she couldn't focus on what she was doing, as she couldn't meet the delivery timelines, she couldn't be, in product quality. All these were suffering because of her other issues which she had to struggle with at personal life. And when I started mentoring her and taking her through, I said, just follow these first to begin with. Yeah. And when she started doing it, she was amazed that, actually she had so much of time to do everything that she wanted to do. And thereby she said, I can now meet my daily goals very efficiently. And she was, in fact, so happy that she was improving in her targets. And this is what happens when you just make certain small changes in your behavior. Now, because it is a practice, you have to do it on a daily basis till it becomes a habit, because habit also forms because of continuous practice. And that is what Krishna is telling us. When you do this, it creates wonders for you. And personally, I find that it has made my life very easy. Yeah, over to you, Ram.
Thank you so much, Dipti. It's a beautiful sloka. Actually, this is one interesting, just a trivia for all of you. Uh, in this sloka, Krishna addresses Arjuna in 2 ways. One, he calls him a Mahabhahu, mighty armed one. And the second, very affectionately, he calls him Kaunteya, the son of Kunti, reminding him that I'm actually your cousin, just a matter of trivia. So on the one hand, there's a lot of respect. Mahabhahu, and Kaunteya is a lot of affection. And this is really this whole concept of tough love that we talk about as entrepreneurs. So who do you practice this tough love? You need to practice this tough love on yourself. The fact is, how do you develop this whole thing that Dipti talked about? This Aikagram Mana, as I call it, this single pointed vision that is required to take that Mahatvapurna karma, that is that significant action that you need to do. Adi Shankaracharya says something very nice. He says, Abhyasa is actually the constant repetition of an action, of a thought, of an idea, of, as Dipti says, reiteration of that purpose of your life, etc., etc. It's like an athlete, who keeps doing the same action day in and day out, day in and day out. It's like an actor, it's like an artist, who keeps singing the same raga every day. It's like an actor who practices those lines every day. The same thing applies to us as entrepreneurs. If we can keep doing the same thing again and again, the abhyasa that is required, the humility that is required to perform this abhyasa on a day-to-day basis. So what, like Dipti said, remind yourself every day, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, why are you in this business? Why are you doing this particular business? Keep reminding yourself in creative ways when you go for a walk in the morning, when you're having a cup of tea, coffee. So much so that wherever you see anything, you remind yourself of that particular reason to be. I keep telling people you must track three aspects of your business 3 times a day, whatever those three aspects are. What are your sales? What are your collections? What is the bank amount? Who are the three key team members that you need to keep talking to? So develop a certain practice on a day-to-day basis. Like Dipti said, it is that abhyasa that you need to look at on a day-to-day basis. Why? Because during the day, you will have some things that will go your way and you will have some things that will not go your way. So you will get into this jaya jaya, sukha dukha, labha labha. You will get into that. That is something that will willy-nilly happen to you because things will not work the way you want it to work, or things may work excellently well. So, how do you handle the huge highs and the huge lows in life? That is when this whole business of Vairagya kicks in. You need to be detached. You need to feel good when things go right. You need to feel sad when things don't go right. That's perfectly all right. It's fine. Nothing wrong. But you need to come back to your Abhyasa again and again. Just because I had a great day today, it does not mean that I'm going to forget that. Just because I had a bad day today, it does not mean that don't go back to my Abhyasa. So this Abhyasa Vairagya is so important in life. When I was running an ad agency some years ago, I lost a very important client for no rhyme or reason. I mean, at least I thought at that time there was no rhyme or reason. Today, in deep maturity, I know why. But at that time, we lost a very, very important client. And just like that. And I was in Bombay, and my whole team was extremely upset about the fact that we'd lost this business. But how did we bounce back? We bounced back by going back to the abhyasa of what we were in business for, or what we wanted to achieve in our life. And that helped us bounce back. So Abhyasa needs Vairagya to flourish. And it is that Vairagya that fuels Abhyasa again. And therefore, this is a continuous part, this Abhyasa with Vairagya, which leads to more Abhyasa, which leads to more Vairagya, which leads to more Abhyasa. And this is how you actually keep doing it again and again and again and coming out of it. We have two lovely people, very, very gifted people, Vikram and Shiv Kumarji. I'm going to stop this share and I'm going to request them to share with us their journey. What are some things that they practice on a day-to-day basis? And how do you handle the ups and the downs in life? So Vikram, we'll start with you and then we'll get to Shiv Kumarji after that. Vikram?
Sure. Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here. So, maybe I'll start with my a little bit of a deeper dive journey and then come to what do I do to handle what I handle. So originally from Nagpur, tier 2 town, did my engineering from there, from a private college. So I'm not from IIT or any of those. But then realized that, tier 2 town and a private college, and this was in the 90s, is not going to get me anywhere. So I went to Canada, did my master's in engineering, and then I joined a company called PMC Sierra, which was in semiconductor products in Vancouver. So that part of my life, I've been a hardcore techie. I have US patents, technical publications, all of that. 2005 is when my life changed. PMC wanted to set up a R&D center in Bangalore, and I got picked to bootstrap it, relocate back to Bangalore and bootstrap it. And I would be very honest, if they were looking for 10 things in that candidate, I had zero. I had absolutely nothing. I was a hardcore techie. But I was very persistent. I kept going to HR for a month saying, give me a chance to at least present my case. And they will keep saying, you are really good, but this is not for you. Finally, I had to say that, stop saying you are really good, because if that was the case, you would give me an opportunity to present my case. That opened the doors. I went through all the interviews, including the CEO of the company, founder and CEO of the company, and I got the job. So I relocated back in 2005 as the first one for PMC in Bangalore. Started there India pretty much from my hotel room. We had absolutely nothing. And here I was who had no clue of what to do. But as luck would have it, in next 10 years, I had built PMC to be the largest R&D center for the company worldwide, the Bangalore center. Had more than 1,000 headcount across multiple offices in Bangalore and Hyderabad. At the peak of my career, I decided to hang my corporate boots. The only reason being, comfort zone makes me very, very uncomfortable. So while that fueled my growth, accelerated my growth in corporate journey, it also came to a point where come to office every day, go into my corner office and feel I'm not giving back what what I get basically, right? So almost 2 years of discussions and negotiations with the founders. We agreed on a succession plan, timeline, and I came out. Then I built my first startup. It was in a semiconductor domain, right? In between, I also did, executive, MBA from IIM Bangalore. So then I built my first startup. I put a platform for niche semiconductor IP startups. These were small startups in Bangalore. They were struggling to get business of multinationals because semiconductors is a very expensive business. So credibility matters a lot. Because I carried credibility in the semiconductor ecosystem, so I qualified them, brought them on my platform, and business took off very quickly. So built a very profitable business in a very, very short time. But I also realized that the TAM, the total available market for that was very small. I was personally making very good money, but it was not fulfilling. What I was doing was not fulfilling. So I decided to exit that, and because this is a profitable business, finding a buyer was not an issue. So in a very short time, I went from starting profitably building to exiting a company. Took a small sabbatical, traveled to California, met a lot of entrepreneurs, investors, friends, just brainstorming what next. Came back to India and I was about to put together my next venture when I get a call from a gentleman in California. He was a PhD in data and neurosciences. Young blood. He, along with five, six others, they were building a SaaS platform in data pipeline. Okay, they had great educational credentials, but no experience of building anything, and that's where my name got referred to them, saying Vikram has extremely complementary skills, and he's also looking to build something. Why don't you guys figure out if there's synergies? Right. So a couple of discussions, and I felt that was a great opportunity for me as well because one, I could apply my experience. At the same time, I had never done SaaS, I had never done data. So a lot for me to learn as well. So we joined hands. Next 6 years again were very dramatic. We went from, I started the India, from a spare room of my home actually in Belandur. First 6 years, we had no money to pay anyone, right? So we were looking for people who would work for very cheap versus their market salary, but are aligned to the purpose and mission. And spare room in the home was the office, right? But next six years again were very dramatic. 2021, we had raised our Series D of 565 million for a $5.6 billion valuation. More than the valuation and the money raised, right? What I am really proud of is a highly sustainable, high growth business is what we built. The money we raised was always used to fuel the growth, not to sustain the business. Today, the likes of ChatGPT and Reliance are customers, biggies around the world are customers, and also small startups around the world are customer. Anyone who wants to do analytics or AI is a potential customer for Fivetran. That's the last startup, right? Through this journey, from my engineering to this, right, I have been a massive beneficiary of astrology-based guidance. It started with curiosity, going to different astrologers, but very quickly I realized that bulk of the practicing astrologers are of very poor quality. I consider myself very lucky that I came across some very talented astrologers, and I call them as a guiding force in my life, right? To a point that if they were not around helping me, I don't think I would be here in front of you guys today or in any place, let's say, whether it is professionally or in personal life as well. So when we built Fivetran, which was a SaaS product, I started to feel that, I've been very privileged in my life in a lot of ways. And one of those was I had access to these very talented and credible astrologers who changed my life, right? Uh, and now I know how to build SaaS platforms, take them global. Why not build a credible astrology platform so that we democratize the science behind astrology and make it accessible to every human being on the planet? Okay. Very few would quit a company they have built, which is going to be Nasdaq listed pretty shortly, right? But I felt my purpose was bigger than just being part of a journey where it gets Nasdaq listed and I'm in New York at that time, right? And if that purpose is also a massive business opportunity, it becomes a no-brainer, right? So it's been 2.5 years, more than 2.5 years. January 2023 is when I completely came out of 5 ton and I've been building Meluha, which is an astrology as a service platform. We have built the prediction engine in-house, more than 200 software IPs built in-house. So we have a very talented astrology team. They gives us algorithms and our software team has coded them into IPs. And we have powered it up with Gen AI, right? We have, if you take a pin and put it on a world map anywhere, very likely we have users there. We have users across more than 190 countries. The app is live for about 15 months now, right? Users across 190 odd countries, more than 10 lakh impacted families in this period. And we've broken even at a EBITDA level from a business perspective now, right? So, as an entrepreneur, that's a important milestone we all strive for. So yeah, that's been my journey. Lots of ups and downs for sure, right? What we all see is the tip of the iceberg. What an entrepreneur goes through is beneath that, right? Um, as a result, right, I think the shloka is extremely relevant in any entrepreneur's journey, is what I feel. The shloka that we talked of today, extreme. Every morning you have to just get up. Every night when I go to bed, right, I have a list of things, I need to do next morning. But 99% of the days when I wake up and I look at the dashboards, what I end up doing 70% of the day is very different than what I really needed to do. And then you still need to figure out how do you catch up on stuff, right? So yeah, it's life's been full of those, those challenges, those I call it opportunities as well, to raise the bar, sharpen yourself on a daily basis, right? Um, there have been, as I said, I already talked of highs, so I won't talk of highs, right? When we started building Meluha, I would talk of one of the important but initial lows in Meluha as well, right? When we started building Meluha, there was no chat GPT, and I honestly don't know what I was thinking. I'm wanting to build a conversational AI kind of platform which answers questions using astrology without having chat GPT or any of those Gen AI models out there, right? We put a POC out there, right? We somehow cracked it. We put a POC out there, and then chat GPT happens. So good 6 months we tried to reskill our team, and adapt to the change reality, right? But pivots are extremely important in an entrepreneur's life, right? Pivots can be about what you do. Pivots can be about how you do it as well. And in this case, while the purpose did not change, how we went about that purpose had to change. So we had to dump everything we had built for more than a year and reinvent ourselves
Fantastic.
from a completely ground up. Yeah. Lastly, I would just close with very fortunate that we've been getting a lot of free press. We were on Shark Tank season 3. I was also on CNBC TV for a half an hour interview, and most of the tier one news and media have covered us because we are getting eyeballs for the core purpose with which we are building this, which is a credible source of guidance using scientific approach to astrology. Thank you so much.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Vikram. That was a lovely share.
Yeah.
Shivkumarji,
Namaste.
namaste.
Namaste, Garu. Thank you for inviting me here and for this wonderful opportunity. Namaste, everybody. A brief about my own journey. Born, brought up in Bangalore. I share at least the college with Ram Shashi Garu. We both went to National College, Basangudi. A very happening place in South Bangalore and a very culture shaping institution. So Bangalore is very indebted to this college. And I did like a typical man of our times, did my engineering. computer science, did my master's in computer science from IIT Bombay, and then spent 25 years in IT industry, out of which 23 years it was in one company called Mindtree, which is now called LTI Mindtree. Quite a good company. It's a pleasure being there. That's why I stuck on for 23 years. I was in the technology delivery for 8 years, but I always knew that technology delivery was not my swadharma. And I always had a passion for theory and learning and development, teaching. So I moved. So I was one of the few technology delivery guys who moved into learning and development full time. And then I spent 16 years in various enabling roles around learning and development. That also covered recruitment, staff operations, practice management. So a variety of roles around competence and capability and capacity creation I perform, largely centered around learning and development. Built our own learning management system. So we built an LMS internally, which survived for 10 years and scaled from 10,000 to 1 lakh people. So, but all along, to cut a long story short, all along, I had this, my own Abhyasa was taking a step back and developing that Sakshi Bhava, observing yourselves, observing what you're doing, what's happening around, and asking a fundamental question: where is this going? What is the problem that it is solving? For who? And why are we doing this? So IT industry was in a unique position that it was not creating anything for its nearby society. In India, that's the only industry that's largely completely focused on creating value for a distant society, that which it does not understand. So that which it works through various intermediaries. So it brings its own complexities. So not having that sight was quite created a lot of illusions and delusions about various aspects of industry, the purpose of technology, and so on. So at some stage, after many years, I felt that there is indeed a lack of opportunity to develop a purpose clarity in the industry, and that we are also operating in a frame of life that is not our own. The chasm was clear. The chasm was experienced by everybody, but a few could articulate it for themselves. I would say having an emotional distance from technology while being a technologist helped me that process. I did not think of technology as the panacea for everything, or IT technology is the panacea. So I would only look at it from what is it doing, to whom and why. So at some stage I felt that there is a drishti gap between Indian society and the industrial spaces of India. And I wanted to fix it for myself, not for others. That's a distinct thing. So at some stage, I developed some clarity that I must move out and seek an opportunity where I can apply Indian knowledge systems as a terminology did not exist. But in Indian drishti, where work and life are not having two different drishtis. The drishti of your life is also the drishti of your work. So of course, it took many more years, 5 more years, for me to meet Sri Harikiran Gautamani. I met him, and then my journey with Indica had begun while I was still working. And in 2020, I met him. At that time, when I met him, to me, it was clear that, this is where I want to be. And then, of course, it took another 3 years for me to move out. So in 2023, I moved out of the IT industry. And last 2 years fully, and before that, another 3 years informally, I've been with Indica, which is an institute for Indian knowledge systems, culture, and traditions. And where I have the opportunity to use IKS and develop frameworks, programs, methodologies, perspectives, and drishti for contemporary life. So, in this journey, in the last 2 years, one of the strongest experiences of mine is to listen who are like Ram Garu. You were there in the meta retreat. So those 2 days, my job was to listen to people, note down what they're saying, synthesize that, intervene only minimally when required. It's a humbling, fulfilling, gratitude-bringing experience. Having the Abhyasa of Sakshi Bhava and the Vairagya of not being attached to a particular outcome, rather looking at outcomes only from the lens of whether it is creating a balance or not creating a balance. It's a very joyous thing to do. So which in the last 2 years, whether it is a meta retreat or is the podcast, like a Changemakers podcast, or the variety of workshops that I run from the standpoint of bringing IKS to contemporary world, including governance and public service. So the IKS as a Indian knowledge systems, Bhagavad Gita is the greatest expression of Indian knowledge systems. The shloka is that we discussed today is one of the signature shlokas of the Bhagavad Gita, and there are three other shlokas that talk about Abhyasa and Vairagya, and this also comes from Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, where also Abhyasa and Vairagya. There's one sutra that talks about that. 6.12, 1.6.12. Correct. So Indian knowledge systems, when we engage with a variety of it, the Abhyasa and Vairagya is an integral part of all aspects of it, and it is offered to us through the framework of yoga. Yama, as you said, Yama Niyama. Without that, we do not go to other aspects of yoga. Yama Niyama is practices. You build a set of practices around your profession, around your life, that helps you develop a detachment. So it's woven into that. Of course, now our challenge is that we have moved into a lot of new professions. Technology industry brings significantly new professions. Ritualizing that universe to develop an Abhyasa universe, sub-universe within that is an innovation that we need to bring to the table, which I think the speed with which things are going has made it difficult for us to do that. So to cut a long story short, so this reflection of the chasm between work and life for me was enabled by this development of this Sakshi Bhava and not getting too attached to the beauty of the profession. So I I always look, when there is moment of success, also my Yama Niyama of Sakshi Bhava was still working.
Hmm.
So
Very nice.
this is my experience with this shloka. This is how this shloka has kind of manifested within me, both in my 23 years of IT industry and now in my own swadharma of role at Medica.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Shiv Kumarji. So, Dipti, one quick hack from you on what, and maybe in the next couple of minutes, Shreya, if we can open the breakout rooms, that would be great. One quick hack, Dipti, on a daily practice that we can do.
um, I will share with you what I do, especially to stay focused. I have found that writing down my to-do list on a daily basis, even smallest of tasks, I write it down. And then I, of course, prioritize which I need to do. So I set a small timeline when I'm going to do what. And this has helped me a lot. So I would suggest, yes, writing down brings the mind and helps your mind to focus.
Wonderful.
Absolutely.
Vikram, one quick daily practice that you'd like to share with all our people.
Yeah, so extremely important to know what is that one thing. And I think someone in the chat also had said, when you had opened up the chat initially. So what is that one thing I need to achieve today is is what I, make it very clear to myself. Of course, I did get distracted, right? But then I bring myself back to, okay, am I focused on this?
Fantastic.
So yeah,
So that one thing,
the one.
Shivakumar, one thing, Shiva, one practice that you can share that you do on a daily basis.
I always reflect upon what I did today, end of the day, without fail. So I walk through my 12 hours, 10, 14 hours, and I don't try to be perfect. The objective is not to be perfect, but the objective is to scan through it. And whatever is there, all the strong experiences come out. All the things that you didn't want to do, but you did also come out. Just sorting it out in your mind very, very joyfully, not
Fantastic.
stressing on it, not hair splitting on it.
Fantastic. So you're saying reflection, Vikram is saying one thing that I want to achieve today, Dipti is saying a to-do list. That's right. So here, what I do on a daily basis as an Abhyasa is to express gratitude. I am so grateful that makes me feel extremely humble that, look, I have done nothing today. There are so many people who've helped me do what I've done today. So the daily abhyasa that I perform, and that helps me also bring in a certain amount of vairagya from my own ego, from that I am the center of the universe. I am the guy who's done this. It is because of me that this program is going. All of that rubbish keeps getting kind of done away, because so tomorrow morning when I'm going to get up, I'm going to be thanking everybody who's been here on this program. Shreya, Deepal, who put the program together, Shiv Kumar, Vikram, Dipti for helping. So this gratitude is something that now has become part of my life that I practice every day.